Welcome to Faith Break, finding God moments in your everyday. Each week on Faith Break, hosts Karen Luke and Ann Gallagher bring spiritual refreshment to your daily life. Happy Easter as we move from Lent into the joyful Easter season. Karen and Ann reflect about what it means to have a resurrection faith in a world that still feels uncertain. The empty tomb is just the first step toward Alleluia.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Faith Break. I am Ann Gallagher.
And I am Karen Luke.
And we are coworkers, friends, moms, wives, lay ministers, and we are here every week to help you find your God moments in your everyday. And today is a special day.
Happy Easter!
Happy Easter, everybody. We actually, to be perfectly honest, needed to give ourselves a little pep talk this morning because we are recording this in the middle of Lent, and it has been a very Lenty week for
very deserty
some of us. So we are switching gears a little bit to put ourselves in a resurrection frame of mind. And how about we start by sharing our God moments?
Okay.
Do you have one?
I do.
Okay.
So you've heard me talk about my great nephew, my great nephew,
Yes.
Harrison. And my niece and nephew invited us over for dinner, and the text said, Harrison wants to have dinner with you guys.
Aww.
And it was the cutest thing. And I was like, okay. So we went over and we had dinner. And as I was holding Harrison and he was falling asleep, my niece asked me to be his godmother. And it was just like the most precious moment. And it was funny because we're all around the table, but I heard nothing else but Susie. And Nathaniel and Jeremy were talking, and all of a sudden Nathaniel looks at Susie, and he's like, "You asked her?" And I'm like, was she not supposed to? Oh my gosh. And then Jerry's like, wait, what happened? And it was just like the most beautiful, comical.
While you're holding
I'm
him.
holding, and he's asleep on me. That is, I miss the baby sleeping on me. So that was definitely my God moment.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe you just said that because that relates to my God moment
Oh my
this
God,
week.
and we're twinning.
We're twinning again. We didn't call each other. This just happens to us frequently. So, our kids are teenagers.
Yeah.
And when you have teenagers, you look back at those baby years and with like kind of a longing because even though when I was in it, I was exhausted and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done.
For sure.
But now looking back, you're like, remember when you could just pick them up and everything was okay?
Yes.
And remember when you could just hold them and everything was okay? So now they're teenagers and it doesn't really work like that all the time. And we had some rough moments with my littlest one, who's now a big one this week, was just struggling. But in the middle of that, oh my gosh, she's going to kill me if she hears this, but she let me snuggle with her.
Oh.
And, even like just hold her and just just be there with her in that way, even though she's, it's like
Almost as taller
than me. And,
yeah.
It's like trying to hold like a St. Bernard puppy who's not a puppy anymore. And now they're like big, and you're just like, but just to have that moment where I was like, okay, I know this isn't actually fixing anything.
Right.
But I'm glad she still will let me hold her today.
Wow.
Just a little. So, yeah, that was my God moment.
Gosh.
Okay.
W.
We did
It's
it.
a win. Okay.
All right. Easter Sunday.
Easter. There's a lot to unpack.
There is a lot to unpack. And I know we've done a podcast it's probably our third Easter.
Yeah.
We're talking about this. So I don't want to get repetitive, but I do think every year we spend a little time talking about the idea that, at church, when it's Easter Sunday or even like the Easter Vigil, like we go from darkness and then the gospel, we turn on all the lights, we sing all the Alleluias, and it's a symbolic kind of like visceral thing the church does with the joy of the resurrection. And I appreciate that. But at the same time, when we're looking at the readings, and I think when we sometimes look at what's happening in our hearts, we know that Easter doesn't really come in that way all the time.
Yeah.
And it certainly didn't come in that way for the people who were at the tomb
Right.
on Easter morning.
Yeah.
You know?
I love Mary I love Mary Magdalene in all of the stories, but this one, it's like, and I'm sure we're repeating ourselves, but can I just give a shout out that she was the first person?
First witness to the resurrection.
A woman was the first person to witness the resurrection.
In all 4 Gospels.
And it was like,
Yep.
Anyway. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like, I mean, they still knew, but they still had like confusion.
Right. And like we come in liturgically, it's almost like a marching band, sometimes we're like, Alleluia, like it's all, but the Gospels give us this image of her coming to the tomb when it's still dark, alone, or maybe depending on which Gospel you read, like one other woman or something. And, so she's looking for the body of Jesus in the dark. And that was Easter Sunday, right? And when she finds the empty tomb, it's not an Alleluia. It's like, what the heck is happening here? I need to go get some friends and figure out what to do next, right?
But isn't that with everything? Like in hindsight, like when we're in the midst of something, we don't get those moments. Like it's just an eagle eye on that particular moment without any other context. And then it isn't until after that you're like, oh, yes, okay, now I can piece it together. Now this makes more sense. I think that's just in everyday life. And we're able to celebrate the joys and the Alleluias because we have what happens after.
Yeah, no, it takes time to integrate that understanding of what the resurrection is, right? And even the people who were closest to Jesus did not... they didn't understand it on Easter Sunday morning. I mean, we have this, you got to love the story with, the apostle Jesus loved and Peter like kind of racing each other to the tomb, right?
Yeah.
So we have Mary Magdalene's like kind of creeping in quietly in the dark. Then she finds the empty tomb and goes and gets the other 2. And they say that the disciple that Jesus, the beloved disciple, ran faster than Peter and got there first, but didn't go in. Yeah. And I just love that image. Like reminds me of, when you were little, like the top of the basement stairs. Or like the places like you didn't want to go unless you had a buddy. It's like he runs to it, but he doesn't run in.
Yeah.
He waits for backup.
Yeah.
And then,
that's like when you turn off all the lights downstairs and then you run upstairs.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
right.
Thinking somebody's chasing you.
Yeah, but like that's what the resurrection felt like to Jesus's first followers, right? They were confused and they were afraid. And like what it looked like for them to have faith that first Easter Sunday morning, it wasn't an Alleluia. It was a wait and see. Wait and see what's going to happen next.
I just got thinking about when you were talking. So we have our Alleluia moment on Sunday, Easter. Mm-hmm. And then Monday, we're right back into going to work.
Yeah, except we get Easter Monday off this year. Did you know?
Sweet, I did not.
We don't
know
have to go to work that day.
Yay!
You can go home and Alleluia as much as you want on Easter Monday.
That's one plus of. Well, I mean, we're working through Holy Week, so I mean, it really. But the idea of like how it's a mountaintop experience is what I was trying to say. Like Sunday or Holy Saturday is like our mountaintop experience, and we're just like, yes, Jesus rose, and everything is good. But then we get back into our normal routine and everything is not good.
Right. Yeah, it hasn't all been fixed.
It's not all been fixed.
And it hadn't been fixed for Jesus either. He was raised from the dead, but his disciples didn't get the same Jesus back. They got a resurrected Jesus back. And it wasn't I don't know. I think the faith of Easter Sunday morning is just the faith that this is not the end.
That's a good point.
This is not the end. This is the beginning of something new. And so it calls for a whole different kind of faith because, we make a big deal about Lent, the 40 days of Lent. and the journey of Lent and how it ends with Easter. But like Easter season is a journey. It's a longer journey.
Yeah.
Easter is 50 days, which is 10 days more than 40 days. So
Is it? Good math.
I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's just, we're just starting a whole new process. We're not finishing anything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. And I've said this before, like it's hard being in ministry during these times. Like the ordinary time ministry is like, okay, that's fine, right? But like Easter, Christmas, we're so, I don't want to say busy, but we're
preoccupied with the business
trying to get
busyness
to, give everyone an experience that sometimes I completely flash over and I'm just like, oh, Easter was there. So sometimes I feel like I'm still in the dark until I realize like when
you haven't finished your Lent yet.
I haven't finished my Lent yet. Yeah, actually. So like, one of the questions that we were talking about is like, what makes it hard for you to believe in the risen Jesus among us now?
Yeah.
And that was like, that hit me because in the state of our world now, with everything going on, good and bad, we've had a lot of funerals, a lot of our parishioners have passed. There's been a lot of sickness.
We've had a long, hard winter.
Yeah. And it's just like, but that's always going to still be there. And I guess that's where I struggle, especially this year. And I mentioned that this Lent was different for me.
Yeah.
But that's where I struggle. Like, okay, yes, we're supposed to be celebrating this, yet I still feel bogged down with the darkness and everything that's going on.
But I think that's really important to give permission to everybody, in our parishes and who are listening or watching today, that like, if you find yourself on Easter morning having a hard time feeling the Alleluias, that's okay, because it was the same for Mary and for Peter and for all of Jesus's disciples. And we'll get into that more in coming weeks, but like, they had to grow into it, really, right?
Yeah.
And like, all we know on Easter Sunday is that the tomb is empty and that Jesus has risen. But we don't know what that means. We haven't seen him or experienced him. We haven't seen or experienced the risen Jesus yet. So it's like, I don't know. I think the Easter Sunday faith is a very, it's a hopeful faith, but it's, I don't want to say fragile, but tender. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a faith that's been tested and grown yet.
Right.
But the thing that's so cool about the readings is that like we know what it was like from the gospel for Jesus's first followers. But then we have the counterpoint of the reading from Acts, which it's weird. So we're going to hear it first on Easter Sunday, but chronologically it takes place, much later.
Right. Yeah.
Than Easter. And so we see the apostles in a position of really strong faith, like standing up in front of a crowd of people and like strongly and faithfully proclaiming the good news in a way that converted like so many people.
Yeah.
So it's like we know they're going to get there. We have the
so that's the hope.
Yeah.
If
it's like we know we're going to
there.
get there. But to maybe just to hold that Easter Sunday moment with a little bit of care and thoughtfulness this year.
Yeah. Because like not everyone is in a joyous, I think we tend to forget that too. Like at Christmas.
Right.
There are people that are grieving.
It's the first Christmas
it's their
without
first Christmas
someone,
or even their 10th or 15th Christmas. And, I don't know where my point was for that. But like going back to the risen Jesus, have you ever thought about like what Jesus would come back as? Like
why people didn't recognize him in all the stories?
Because I'm like, okay, I'm picturing Jesus coming back as like a poor person on Goodman.
Oh, today. Like what
today.
Jesus would look like today.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And would we even
I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be like a televangelist or anything
no,
like that,
but like,
right?
would we
Yeah.
know? Would we
Mm-hmm.
understand? Would we have that faith? Would we think that he was a lunatic? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just
Yeah.
it's just interesting how that kind of
Mm-hmm.
mindset for me. It's like maybe I did meet him and I didn't recognize him.
Well, you meet him every day, right?
Right.
And all,
That's true. Yeah.
and all the people around us, right? Because
Yeah, that's true.
you know, living with faith means receiving everyone as Christ, which is
Which is
possible.
hard. Oh my gosh. Do you ever have you ever been so angry with somebody? I've never been able to physically do this though, but like I tell myself, if I'm angry with somebody, just imagine them being Jesus. I just can't get past that point. I was just like, no, I'd rather. That makes me sound like a really bad person, probably, but
It's
just
hard.
like, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
This is hard.
Yeah.
Life is hard. Adulting's hard. I'm sorry. I'm like negative Nancy today.
You know what? We're just going to go with it because it's okay. We're living into the Alleluia.
So
you don't have to
for
be all with it
everybody
today.
who is feeling like me,
Mm-hmm.
you got me. And then there's Anne, who's the joyous
Oh,
Alleluia.
God. I don't know if I can carry that banner all the time.
I didn't say all the time. I said
Yeah.
just like right now.
Well, listen, what does Jesus, this is another question we were going to talk about. What does Jesus say when he starts appearing to the disciples?
Peace.
Peace. Peace, and also do not be afraid. Those are like the two things that come up over the resurrection stories over and over again. And like, Jesus is telling them to not be afraid and to have peace because they're scared and anxious. Right? I mean, he says it for a reason, because they don't have it and they need it.
Yeah.
And he needs to give it to them. But so I find that very relatable, is that, in this joyful season of Easter, we still need to go to God for peace.
Yeah.
Because
absolutely, yeah.
it's not easy to walk into the unknown. And I think that's part of what you're saying and what I'm feeling too in my life right now is like there's so much that's unknown. Right? We're dealing with trying to get our teens safely through adolescence. We're trying to get our parents, through their older years. We're trying to get through the busiest work years that we're probably ever going to have.
Yeah.
And like, we're trying to do it all. And, like I think about the people who built the church. Like it all started on Easter.
Yeah.
But they had no idea.
What was going to happen, yeah.
Yeah, or how they were going to get there.
But peace comes in a lot of different forms.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, somebody could be of peace mindset where everything is just, all right, I'll let God handle it. All right, this is fine. And then there's moments of peace where, like, in the chaos, you're like, okay, yep, now I can go forward.
Yeah.
So wherever you are on your journey, like, peace can look different.
Right.
In many ways.
Right. And we've just finished Lent, which we've talked about, being pilgrims of hope and being on a journey. And, but really, I almost feel like Lent is like the prelude to the journey. Like it's the journey to this, to this starting line of what it means to build the church and to be an Easter people. And so, Lent was when we gathered ourselves.
Yeah.
And we got rid of the things that we didn't need. And hopefully we put ourselves in a position to draw closer to God. But it's in Easter where, I don't know, I think we're really called to become the people God's made us to be. And to do the hard work of building. I know. I'm sorry.
No, it's true.
Need a rest.
No.
We need a rest.
I think one of the reasons why we're having a hard time today is because this is like our 3rd year anniversary.
Yeah.
And it's like, what haven't we said about Easter, right? But we're all on a different journey. And that's what I love about our faith is that we're all on a different journey. We're never on the same timeline.
Yep.
But also the readings are different. So like what we talked about 3 years ago, I should have watched it. We were in a different place.
Yeah.
You know?
A lot has happened in 3 years.
A lot has happened in 3 years. I had a 13-year-old, not a 16-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, when she was a lot nicer in the mornings. Don't kill me, Emma.
Well, yeah. I mean, and the cool thing about being in community is like, there's going to be someone who can say the Alleluia for you. And you could just go and like stand next to them
Right?
for a minute,
Yeah.
you know, and just like, that's why we have each other, you know, and why I think why the church brings us through these cycles of seasons every year is because, you know, where we are in our hearts may or may not align with like the liturgical calendar, but it still is, I don't know, like a bucket in which to put whatever the emotions are that we're dealing with spiritually.
Yeah.
You know?
And in community, there's always somebody there to lift you up or pray for you, pray with you in your times of whatever, and to celebrate with us. So thank you to our families at Transfiguration and St. Catherine's for...
And Easter is always so much fun.
It
It really is. I mean, I know we sometimes complain about like the work hours during Holy Week and Easter, but I love Easter. I love seeing everybody come in their dresses, and I love giving out little Easter eggs, and I love the Alleluias that we get to sing because we haven't sung them for 6 weeks, and the music. I just, you know, I need it. I love it, and so I'm not like getting down on Easter, but I feel like it's important to say right now that like, the Alleluia in your heart might be quiet, and it might be timid, and it might be uncertain, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
Because we got miles to go before we sleep, friends. Okay, so as we kind of start our journey into this Easter season, I think one way to keep our eyes open for the risen Jesus, who sometimes we might not recognize, is like to allow ourselves to have new eyes to see the unexpected places where Jesus can show up. Right? Okay, so like maybe that's what Easter is. Maybe it's not coming in with a marching band full of Alleluias, but it's just having open eyes to see where Jesus might show up. And maybe it's just in like the flowers that are starting to come up, or maybe it's like, you know, the smell in the air when the snow melts and like we get rain instead. What a nice change, or whatever, for Rochester. But like,
You're so optimistic.
you know, I mean, I think it's just like, let it be the small things, and it doesn't have to be all over. I have to say that I don't know if this is going to make it into the podcast, but I was looking at the camera, and we have been talking about since the fall when we started this thing that we needed to get a little Jesus to sit on the camera, and Jesus has been there all day, and I didn't notice it until right now. So Jeff had put a little Jesus doll right on the camera.
Jesus has come.
So, I mean, but isn't that perfect for Easter? Because it's like...
Oh my God!
How often
Like
do we walk
it
right
was like a
past it?
scary moment too. It was like we were all quiet, and then all of a sudden Anne's like, Jesus! And I was like, what? But
there he is.
I mean,
that's my
it's
Easter
in the
moment.
small moments.
Yeah,
it's the small moments. I think the small moments are also easier attainable than like searching for this big thing.
Yeah.
That might not come for a very long time, and then we just feel more let down. So
let Easter be the first step towards faith.
Amen.
We got a whole season to dance towards the rest of it. All right. I think
we're
that's
good.
where we're at this Easter, and that's
Yep.
where we're going to be. So we hope you guys all have a very joyful Easter. And we will be with you in the coming weeks to explore more about growing in faith, dealing with doubts, and just...
keep on keeping on.
Finding Jesus in the everyday moments.
Yeah.
So have a great week, everyone.
Bye.
Happy Easter.
Thanks for taking a faith break with us today. Karen Luke and Ann Gallagher are lay ministers with the parishes of St. Catherine of Siena in Mendon, New York, and Church of the Transfiguration in Pittsford, New York. More about our parishes, including weekly live-streamed Sunday Mass, can be found at stcath.org or transfigurationpittsford.org. Engineering today is by Jeff Beckett. Join us for new episodes of Faith Break each week in studio on YouTube or on your favorite audio podcast or music app.